Okay.
You're on Twitch?
Oh, I don't know. It says I'm streaming. I've gotten
Have you got a link you can give me so I can see?
to Twitch. I haven't poked with Twitch at all. I don't know.
No, I'll find you there.
Okay, so it currently says I have 2 live things going on. Though I guess both of them. Okay, okay. So one of them looks like it actually went through. Get shareable link.
Link. Give us a link privately and I'll show you.
Okay. Okay, this one might actually be working.
Great.
It isn't totally, but
I've got the link. Okay, copy link.
But that's coming from OBS Studio. If I can just figure out how to get the friggin' webcam on.
See? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, okay.
Right, so I'm gonna post that link, okay? Let me post that link. Oh, this is weird.
Yeah, I can hear my echo.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh no, alright, delete webcam.
You're actually coming out of YouTube now.
That's good, that's good.
You're actually coming out of YouTube now. I'll hang up, eh?
Webcam. Use the webcam, please. Okay, okay. Great.
Is your face on?
I think this is my face. Oh no, I just ruined my little... I ruined my little scenes, though. Oh well.
What are you on, YouTube or Twitch?
YouTube. Here, I'll jump over and post it too. I'm kind of worried if I do, it'll mess up this whole thing. But
Okay. So the link you might need to send a new.
Here, I'll hop over into the thing and see if I can do that without accidentally ruining everything.
What, the new link or the old one?
I'm gonna post the new link in the old stream.
Thanks. See you there.
Alright, open this. That one should work! And I'll edit the
Yeah,
description.
I can see you now. You got a black top on, yeah?
Yeah. That's the better.
Have you put it in the new one? Yeah, everyone's coming out.
Oh, I'm posting it everywhere.
I'm gonna post. Can you please just right click on me or click home and make us moderator? I'm gonna wait for everyone to say it works first.
Yes. I tried it before, but it wouldn't. I was in the wrong interface. Looking.
Just if you see me, no worries.
I'm scrolling around. I don't see, but I think it's working. Let's see. Let me see if I can.
I'll leave you to it.
Hey! All right. People are jumping over. This is very good. Well then, I'm just going to assume that this is working. Unfortunately, I think that having changed my, let's see, can I add this back? How do I add previously used sources? Who cares, you know? Webcam? Oh well. All right, so I'm gonna hang up on you, and
Cheers, bye. I'll speak to you later, bye.
all right. Wow. All right. So only 25 minutes late. Thanks for hopping over onto the new stream. This is you know what? I think I did everything right. All this stuff was saying it was connecting and it was streaming, and I could see my face, and it had all the meters and everything, and it was like, you're going. It just wasn't going. Well, thanks again for your patience. Hopefully the anticipation made it go better, and those of you who desperately needed sandwiches got your sandwiches. I'm glad that we have a I guess slightly smaller stream here today, just because this is one, it makes it a little bit more focused, which is cool, and two, because of oh geez, so I got a little bit of caffeine to get amped up, but that combined with the last half hour of frenetic troubleshooting means that I've got to probably calm down a little bit here. Um, okay, this is great. This is great. So I've been figuring out. So I've set up all of these scenes over the past couple days in Streamlabs, and thank you, Spaceship Dev, for. Oh, that's right. You want me to make you a mod here. You'll have to say something so I can find you. But yeah, I set up all these little buttons so that I can like poof. But unfortunately, with all the webcam stuff, now my face isn't here, but that's okay. I also have. Oh, Gabriel Wolf, I do need caffeine. And this, if I hit this button, we get the live view of that sidewalk from Abbey Road. This is a treat right here. Let's see. Spaceship Dev, have you chimed in yet? You gotta post something so I can see you pop up. Currently, yeah, in Seattle it is noon. So, yeah, so kind of my big... Oh, here, we'll go back to... Well, first, I've got another button here. Okay, well, that's typical. It's the live view from space. But, So, I literally can't keep up with messages, and so I thought maybe I would just try to answer stuff from here kind of in real time. And if we want, we could jump over in the end to doing some Blender stuff. We'll see what happens. But first, I literally need to wait for my heart rate to half. Spaceship Dev. Oh, he is commented. Let's see. I have 10 bazillion tabs. Oh, I just have to click this link. Now I'm watching a feedback loop. This is horrible television. There we go. Okay, so, does anybody have a question? Oh, this T-shirt, yes! Slice of Life, you're here. If you guys haven't seen Slice of Life, they are really cool. It's a short film, kind of in the Blade Runner universe, except they did everything like practical. Like they built actual miniatures outside of car windows and stuff with like the rain on the windshield, so it looks like it's a distant city. And they finally released it up on YouTube. I've been waiting forever. They're really fun. I am 33. I am 33 years old. And there have been a couple people who've commented like, "Wow, I didn't know he was old," and I wasn't old until very recently. What makes me the happiest? I'm very bad at knowing what makes me happy. I found I have some fairly unhealthy patterns where I just kind of hyper-focus on a thing, and I'm like, poo, 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 gotta do this thing. And at some points, I need to just take a step back and be like, is this actually good for me and the people around me? How do we join the incubator place you made for filmmakers in Seattle? Yes, okay, so I would love to do more Seattle-based filmmaking, like, with Seattle... The Seattle film industry is so dry. Basically, everybody moved to either Oregon or, Vancouver, and nobody does anything in Seattle, and that's a little bit of a bummer to me. And so I decided a few years ago, should I go to LA? Because that's where, basically that's the threshold. Anybody who actually cares about film in Seattle just goes to LA, which means all you're left with, in the broad strokes, is a bunch of kind of apathetic people who would like do it if they don't feel like getting stoned. That's a pretty harsh condemnation of Seattle, but it doesn't seem all that untrue. And so yeah, I would love to once the quarantine and all that is fully over, do some big stuff here. And I'd love to collaborate and meet other Seattle filmmakers. Have you seen the world going crazy on NFTs? I have seen the world going crazy on NFTs. Maybe we'll talk about that more later. What are the downsides to buying a space like the church and converting it at all? It seems cool, but I imagine it's not all roses. That is very true. For me, there was kind of three things in conjunction. First, I decided to move out of the city, basically an hour out of the city, when I was 30. Which is exactly when everybody starts to kind of hunker down and have kids and really focus on their jobs, and the whole like, hey, let's just like hang out and make movies and stuff like mentality kind of like is going away. And also just when you're in your 20s is when you really make your core friend group, and then people just kind of like dissolve. And so I had a couple years there where just everybody I knew either moved out of the city or had a couple kids and kind of hunkered down. And now I'm kind of like, where I thought you were supposed to accumulate friends as you got older, but instead they've all kind of been disappearing. And so that happened right as I moved out to the middle of nowhere. And so it feels even more isolated than perhaps it would. Because I have guest rooms and stuff, and I was like, oh, we'll have people over, and we'll just be hanging out and staying up late and making movies and things like that. But I haven't totally figured out that dynamic yet. But my friend Nathan Vegdahl is actually going to be here in like a couple weekends. Nathan Vegdahl created Rigify, or the first version of Rigify. He animated a bunch of Blender open projects, and so he's going to be helping me. We're going to be just making some crazy stuff, and I'm excited. Like, he's very talented. He's a really good guy. Thoughts on using other people's models in your work? I feel like I'm cheating, and I'm not as proud as when I model everything. Somehow it's just endless process creating a whole scene from scratch. I very, very, very much understand what you mean, especially because I like the world building type thing. There's this certain feeling you get when you look at it and you go, I made all of that, but it very much has to do with what you want your end goal to be. For example, like, I like making films where it feels kind of immersive, as if you're going into this other world, and there's no real benefit to the audience if you modeled everything, as opposed to if you're using other assets that still help kind of convey your vision or whatever. And I think that's an important thing to remind yourself. Like, I get all stuck in that, which is why I've spent 3 years making, a 20-minute film, which means people can't actually get, they get 20 minutes in that world. Whereas if I were more comfortable cutting corners and using other pre-existing assets, then I could actually create more of what I wanted to make, which is this, more longer-lasting experience. It is a little bit of vanity. I guess it's a little bit ego. It's that for me is the fun part too. Is like really being able to just like granularly keep unfolding and making smaller and smaller details. Because that's the fun of world building for me, and to just take something else, it doesn't feel as good. So I think there's no reason to beat yourself up about it either way, unless if you're on a deadline, and then maybe kind of reevaluate. Let's see. So somebody asked about episode 1, and I do want to talk about that because I just got the first mix from the sound team, and it's amazing. It's really, really weird. Again, like having hyper obsessively made every single aspect of the thing, because every set in that episode was either hand built and hand painted or designed completely in the computer. Every single bit was made for the episode. I remember when I was a little kid, I knew this guy from LA who came up and told me about real movies, and he went, on a real movie, every single thing you see on camera was hand placed there because it deserved to be in the scene. And that blew my mind, because I was filming in like my mom's kitchen, and I was looking around and like all the spatulas and stuff, like I would have had to like replace all of that. That's ridiculous. But I reached a point where it's like, yeah, every single thing in the frame was like specifically designed to be there. But to do all of that and spend all of that time and then send it off to a sound team knowing that like they're gonna send back a completely different experience is very exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking, except that I've worked with these guys for like the past 12 years, since 2008 or something, and they're literally just the best in Seattle. They're called Impossible Acoustic, and they understand that like sound is so much a part of the directing process. Like if you have the then it goes silent and you just like see the character or whatever, you're conveying as much information to the audience as if it was just visually doing that. Like it's so powerful. And so I'm getting back, the thing I saw from them was like not what I intended in a lot of ways, but it was better. And so that's very exciting. But we're only they told me the end of April, which is about 12 days from now, to maybe 2 weeks after that. So I'm probably going to be releasing it mid-May. They're giving me a really good deal, but part of that is they have to take, the other corporate gigs if they come up. So can you show us how you made the Eevee look so photoreal in the Dynamo trailer? Is there a trick to it? I'm going to make a quick tutorial. I want to do... And that's actually, so I posted the thing on Patreon the other day, like, hey, what were you guys hoping to get out of the Patreon? And mostly people just wrote very nice, supportive things. But what I actually wanted was like just this kind of like, hey, gimme to-do list thing that I could look at and be like, oh, all right, this is where stuff's at, because I'm very shy and I like the idea that the Patreon is solely transactional. And so. Yeah, but I do want to make a couple kind of. I got worried about doing kind of basic stuff on the Patreon because I figured I didn't want to recover old steps, but a lot of those old steps we did like over a year ago at this point. So I think I might relax a little bit on that and kind of do a few more like just basics type stuff. Like a lot of people asked me about the shadow catcher object, where the object was casting a shadow on the HDRI. I might go through, do a tutorial on integrating CG stuff into live action a little bit, and kind of just more flexible multi-use type scenarios, and also getting good results out of Eevee, because Eevee, you got to know stuff to dial in. Every object usually has a setting you can tweak. Every light, the render settings and all that, all have little settings, but there's only a few of them, and then you kind of have a good grasp of Eevee. So I'll go through that. How do you organize your projects? I do not, Jonas. The look you get is amazing. Well, thank you. Fundamentals. Yeah, all right. And I should also, that should be my goal for the end of this month, I think. There was a video I started a while back, and it got a little bit intimidating just because I kept kind of fractally dividing it. But it was just about all the speed modeling type stuff. Like if you just want to block in something really quick without the program getting in the way, that's a very hotkey based workflow, and it's worth it very much to just learn some of those. And so I was just making a video about the hotkeys that I use, and I'll try to finish that up. Camera tracking, image sequence versus video files. I think as long as you are loading, there's that one button, and I think as long as you're loading the video into RAM, it fundamentally does it the same. But the image sequence is always a better idea. I just like being able to dump a video in there. Do you have any thoughts on the positive versus negatives of NFTs? Do you have a principle for hopping on board or staying clear? Yes. All right. Let's talk about NFTs really quick. I feel like I kind of chose a position fairly early on, and then just like filtered most of my information through that pre-decided decision. So I would take anything I think with a grain of salt. I'm in this very narrow window where just looking out at the climate and all of the long-term stuff and the authoritarian, all of that stuff, I'm kind of like, is it a good idea to bring a child into the world right now? And I guess this is some pretty personal stuff, but my fiance and I right now, the answer is no. We're not planning on doing that, which is hard. I would have been a good dad, I think. Caitlin would have been a great mom, and so I'm in this narrow band where it's like, all right, are we actually going to figure out these long-term goals for reaching climate goals and stuff? Because right now the answer is like, no, not at all. And every realization is like, stuff's kind of worse than we were expecting. It's worse than the worst case scenario. And so doing something which is most infamous negative side effect is people are saying the climate stuff. I'm like, maybe I won't even mess with that. I know there's lots of different ways people have said the data can go, but I just decided like, and also there's this aspect of it which was cashing in on your internet clout, and I do not understand my internet clout. I do not respect it. I know compared to like actual famous people, it's 0.000, but there's a lot of you here, and I don't understand that, and I didn't want to monetize it because I just like making stuff, Climate change is a hoax. Yeah, well, maybe it isn't. Let's see. Yes, I should probably be a vegetarian. I am very much a hypocrite in that regard. Like, I'm like, we shouldn't eat animals, and I do sometimes eat animals. I should try to limit that, though. I think that's a very good point. I gave birth to the mothness. What's my thought on using the metallic on the principled BSDF? I notice I rarely use it. That's an interesting point. So for me, the metallic look is almost completely defined by the roughness matte that's going into it, the roughness in the specular. Otherwise, it just looks like kind of a chrome sphere, and I rarely have anything that's chrome unless if it's like, you know, like a piston, you know, like the inner shaft of like a piston or something. And so usually I'm just starting with an image texture and kind of working my way more to metallic. Sorry, talking about climate change and all of that while I'm still trying to come down from the caffeine and everything. I'm still just like, my brain's all wound up. Everybody loves pasta. I want the lyrics. I'm Italian but can't figure out the list of pastas. Have you? We should see if the YouTube amazing new artificial intelligence. Do you guys remember when the YouTube videos were like so bad with the closed captions, with the subtitles? You'd go there and it was just like hilarious how bad it was. And now I can check it if I don't know what somebody's saying, because they have access to, you know, 10,000 million hours of people talking from all over the world and all the dialects. They're actually so good at identifying subtitles, better than like I with my human ears am. So maybe it's, I don't know. I'll see. Maybe the auto-generated subtitles tell the list of pasta is good. How much planning do you do before shooting? I try to do a lot, and that's kind of the fun part of shooting. Is you try to line everything up to make it work as good as possible, but then something always goes wrong, and so it's as if you're going to make cookies, and then somebody shows up with like a watermelon, and it's like, all right, you can make the cookies, that's great, but you gotta use this watermelon. And you go, doesn't, okay, what do we do? And that's where it feels like when everything's firing in every cylinder, you feel like you're at maximum human, because you're like, every part of my brain, this is incredible. Or it just means you have to sit on the sides and wait for other people to figure stuff out for hours and hours as they get to, you know, have fun troubleshooting or, you know, stressing out. But yeah, I try to storyboard and all of that stuff, but I also haven't gotten to do a shoot that was like longer than an hour. Usually I just have somebody really quick and I'm like, all right, we gotta shoot the thing. And so I haven't really been able to like be too methodical about it. I'm very much in the like, what do we got? Watermelon and a spoon. Actually, that works. Am I making any sense? Why Dynamo episodes are not very visible? I discovered them only after 9 years. I don't know. I mean, at this point, they're old. They're very old, and the reason I'm kind of happy about this reboot is that I don't have to tell people to watch stuff I released 10 years ago in order to watch the current things I'm putting out. But yeah, even back then, a lot of people liked it, and the most common comment was, why don't these have more visibility? And I think it just had, the way stuff usually spreads on the internet is, one, it's short, and two, it has some overlap with something else that's already popular. And Dynamo had no overlap with anything. Nobody was ever going to be looking for it. It never got enough views for the algorithm, you know, to notice it in any way. And so I think that was just kind of it. There was never that like thing that made it click. But the people who did watch it tended to like it, which always made me feel really good. Not a question. My wife and I find you charming as heck. Thank you, David Benson. You grew up in Port Townsend. I live in Port Arthur. I was just up in Port Townsend. That's fantastic. What drove you to the style you have now and abandoned the cyberpunk? Ian Huber has abandoned the cyberpunk world. That's, oh, geez. I would love to talk about that forever. Like, I absolutely love cyberpunk and all of that. Like, I grew up with like the Johnny Mnemonic and the Matrix, and Snow Crash was my favorite book for years. But like recently, a lot of that's been kind of just what's the word I'm looking for? Diluted, condensed into an aesthetic that's just kind of like slapped on stuff. It's like, you know, the goggles with the wires and the big dark cities and all of the neon, and like there's this idea of cyberpunk being reduced to, like, even thematically, small person versus giant corporation type thing. and I like that, like as an aesthetic, but also in terms of storytelling, like both in movies and just images and stuff, I I'm a lot more interested, or I'm trying to be a lot more interested in the human aspect, and so the dehumanizing part of the cyberpunk aesthetic, it just didn't really appeal to me. And so if it is going to be kind of cyberpunky, I just kind of like going into like, all right, but where does this guy go home? Where does he sleep? What does he do for fun? And eventually kind of exploring that richness a little bit, I think is what led me into some other aesthetics, if that makes any sense. It's also I'm just an engine that keeps gathering influences, and I get excited about stuff. And so for a while it was cyberpunk, and I think I just glommed on. I finally got old enough that I glommed on enough bits. Everything I did up and through like my mid late 20s was just very, very obviously derivative. Like I saw something and I'm like, I am doing that now, and I'm still doing that. It's just from a broad enough series of dishes that it's a little harder to identify. That's a big, if you're gonna rip something off, rip off two things at once, because then you throw people off your trail, and that's actually a very big thing I had to learn. My favorite mushroom to forage, well, there's some I'd love to find. I'd love to find a morel, just because we've never actually found them. We've been finding a bunch of false morels though, which look like tiny little poops. Is the Robot Soup website the actual website where people like Ed Sheeran contact you? I've never had Ed Sheeran contact me, but I have gotten really drunk and accidentally ended up in a green room with him and behaved not admirably. Actually, that was something I thought maybe we could do streams in the future if this is fun. My brain right now, it's like you're just talking. Why would people just want to hear you talking? But like I've done freelance visual effects type stuff for like 15 years, and so if people had questions about that sort of thing, I thought it could be fun to kind of like focus on that, or like maybe focus on the brainstorming type side of things. But no, nobody contacts me through the Robot Soup website. It's been intentionally sabotaged. Oh, thank you. Do you think you will be making an in-depth rigging tutorial? I've been struggling recently trying to correctly set up bones and make them functional, similar to some of your videos. Yeah, I think between all of my different rigging videos, I've actually covered the depth of my very shallow knowledge of rigging. I learned enough to kind of like say, hey, all right, you move this thing and all this other stuff happens, which is all I really wanted to do, especially for mechanical stuff. But when it comes to like the deformation rigs and all of that and having them all interplay, man, stuff can get so much more advanced than what I do. But I can try to make a more start to finish. That's actually something I think the Patreon could benefit from, because when I first started out, it was like, okay, you can just scroll through the Patreon tutorials. But now I've got, I don't know how many, and the Patreon interface isn't actually all that forgiving when it comes time to scroll through a bunch of stuff. So I want to make both a post that highlights like key tutorials to help people find stuff, and also I want to make just kind of like a, if you want to learn rigging, all right, we're starting with the basics and we're going through type videos. Just yeah, I do want to do something like that. I saw a film called Ink. Ink was very good. Sorry, you scrolled away. Oh wait, no, I can catch up. Ink, that was like 10 years ago. That was a very fun film. What advice would you have for someone trying to get your first client? So I guess this is where I finish what I was saying, and that's that I did everything kind of the dumbest, slowest way possible. I'm a hobbyist who just eventually found out that what I was doing could pay the bills, and I was like, hey, that's nice. Whereas, because I learned in like also like 2003, 2004, when all of the internet landscape and everything was very different. And now I think people kind of know a little bit more what they're getting into. Like there's a business side of things that you can really, really embrace. And I guess if you're trying to get your first client, again, this is bad advice. My my intuition is to say that your first couple gigs are kind of the paying the bills gigs. Then they just suck, and you'll sign up for something and you won't have boundaries set up, and so they'll ask for a change, and you're like, can you just keep asking for changes forever? And honestly, I'm horrible at that side of thing, which is why I am so happy that you guys have let me focus on this side of things, because I was never good at creating those boundaries at all. You got hired doing Blender and 3D stuff at a studio, thanks to everything you... That's so cool! That makes me really happy. I think you should announce your Patreon somewhere more publicly. I would have joined faster, but I had not heard about it, even though I was always impatiently waiting for your videos on YouTube. Oh, that's interesting. There's a weird part of me that's like, I'm looking at the Patreon and I'm already don't understand why so many people are there. I'm kind of like, I don't... Like, I reached a point where I couldn't respond to people's messages, and once I reached that point, any larger felt a little bit like in excess. Like, I felt guilty having more than that many folks there, and so I'm hoping that this kind of helps fix that a little bit. I don't know. I'm seeing so many questions I'm not even able to touch on here. Somebody else asking, Dynamo Dream when? 3 weeks probably. I'd love to know more about when you plan integration between live action and CG. Such a good job. Like when Caitlin rams into the green screen pad, then goes down the endless train carriage. Oh, thank you. Yeah, let's see. Actually, I'm just going to do that as a video, because a few people, I've kind of covered it in bits, but I want to cover that a little bit more, because there's a couple kind of fun tricks you can use to make everything work. A lot of it, especially if you're using, like, on a full green screen environment, anything that happens is an opportunity to integrate it with the live action. Like, if somebody trips, or if somebody looks somewhere unexpectedly, you get to justify that in the CG world. And so, like, everybody's always getting very... like, because it's green screen, they can't see anything, and they're like, well, how many steps should I take? And I'm like, the walkway will just be wherever you walk. Like, it doesn't matter. If it's a complex scene where you have to make them, match a pre-existing set or whatever, then you want to lay it out with tape and all of that. But that's why I loved that one scene with Caitlin going up and down the elevator so much, because just whatever happened was what happened. And I got to build the entire scene to match her movements, and so it was just really chill and really flexible. Let's see. Projecting attract footage in 3D space is super cool. Make more of those. Yes. Yeah, I do want to get into the I just kind of touched on it a little bit, but the digital extensions and stuff, and using the footage you shot to specifically light those digital extensions seamlessly. Eevee makes it so easy because you get to actually like arrange lights and see where the shadows are lining up and all of that, and it's so good. And being able to just play it and watch it all in real time, like, oh, here's the thing, and if you want, you can jump over to cycles. One thing people ask a lot is this render cycles or Eevee? And usually, actually, my renders look almost the same in both. And I just choose cycles because it's a little bit more textural in the end with the bounce light and all of that. And also, like, shadow passes and things, I think work a little bit better in cycles. Thoughts on Alita Battle Angel? Have you seen it? Oh man, all these questions are stuff I'd love to talk about, like, forever. Yes, Alita Battle Angel. The designs were very good. It's Robert Rodriguez. It's Alita. I expected it to be a little bit more punk, like a little bit more and instead it was felt very just kind of Disney, and the characters all felt as if they were being very much directed by a plot. I know there was a lot of love. There was a lot of detail and work and obvious passion behind it, but I was mostly just kind of like I don't know. Yeah, I expected it to be a little bit not edgier as in darker, but all the decisions just felt a little bit safe, I guess. You were the reason I learned Blender, and now you. Oh, that's so. I'm very glad. Um, let's see. Yeah, William, I will try to make one specifically about how to match CG to live action. I think the biggest issue, honestly, is that every camera has different color profiles and all of that, and Blender's got its own color profile, and so you have to get all of those to match to get everything to like really integrate. Like you can do you can brute force it a little bit, like just tweaking the curves and stuff, but getting that stuff to kind of match to begin with helps a lot. And a lot of what people say is like matching the black levels is actually matching the overall color space, which is an absolutely huge task actually, which is why usually we try to reduce it down to just matching the black levels if we can. Let's see, planning on starting a small VFX studio, but I worry that turning my hobby into a job would make me hate VFX. Does working for others make you enjoy it less? No, because they were fairly compartmentalized, at least for me. Like, nobody ever wanted to hire me to do any of the world building stuff or like designing anything. All people ever wanted was like, hey, we accidentally filmed this guy like dancing around with this one logo we don't have permission to use. Can you can you figure out how to paint out like 2 minutes of this logo on this guy's shirt? And I'm like, wait, you don't, oh geez, that's actually really hard. And I'll just spend like a month figuring out how to do, tracked patches and stuff like that. Mostly it's just paint at work. There will always be gigs for you if you become really good at paint at work. Yeah, and I hate that. Yes, absolutely. But that didn't spread to like all art, done on a computer. And so you're probably safe. And if you figure out how to market yourself so that you are the person who does the stuff that you specifically like, well then I guess actually yeah, you can learn how to hate that too. But but yeah, I've never learned to hate CG just from the gigs, because I always saw it as like there's work for other people and then there's me work, and those other people can do whatever they want and it's never gonna affect what I enjoy. Let's see. Occasionally, yeah, VFX work for others is boring. Occasionally it's really fun. Like, to toot my own horn, I've had a couple times where somebody's come to me like, hey, we hired this other visual effects studio and they couldn't do it, but maybe you could do it. And I get to kind of like flex a little bit. There was one time where there were these potholes on a road. They were doing a car commercial, and there were just these big old potholes everywhere in the road, and they wanted to get rid of them. But the camera was so low, so that the foreshortening, it was like, you saw this pothole like this, and then you'd be like, in the next couple frames, it's this big. Like, how do you track something deforming that much? But I actually was able to, like, figure out where they filmed it, and I was able to get some Google Earth photography to triangulate and like do all of that, and I was able to get like a perfect track and reconstruct the road and all of that. And like when it's a puzzle just straight up that much of like a puzzle, that's where it gets fun, where you're like, all right, how are we gonna do this? And then at the end you get to like send them a file and be like, hey, and they're like, oh. So that when it's when it feels like a challenge, it's fun. I don't know if that actually answers what you're asking. How do you schedule your projects? I've been getting commissions for new projects. I'm the worst. I'm the worst at being organized. I organize through deadline, which I think is how people who don't know how to organize, where it's just whatever is the loudest and the most impending is what gets the attention. I like to obsessively hyper-focus, and if I have to focus on too many things, I stress out a little bit. And so that was actually working on Prospect. That was the hardest part. That was a great project, but there were all of these notes for all of these different shots in parallel. Like I delivered over I don't even know how many thousand shots, because there was dust in all the shots too, along with like some main like spaceship shots. And the notes would come in about these shots all randomly, and so I had to completely like shift gears and kind of like do this, and then like 10 minutes later I had to be like, all right, let's go focus on this one. That was really, really hard. I'm answering questions and forgetting what the question I was answering was. Oh yeah, organization. yeah, and so it helps me if there's a, a very specific task that I have to do with a very specific deadline to kind of. My favorite gig? My favorite gig could have been Prospect, just in terms of like the creative satisfaction. Those guys were so cool. If you haven't seen Prospect, I think it's still up on Netflix. I've talked about it a billion times. It's what I did for 2017, 2018. And these guys they did a short film, then they did all the legwork and they got an actual budget, and they just rented a warehouse. They filled it with the most talented artists who were just there spending, like, all the money ended up on screen. And it's the one with Pedro Pascal, who's the Mandalorian, except this is the previous film where he also plays a guy who never takes off his helmet, but you can see his face in this one. But they designed like all of their sets in CAD, and like they just had CNCs running all the time, and like they got an actual guy who built guns to like just brainstorm for a couple months how space guns could work, and then he used all of his gun manufacturing stuff to build this space gun that would like unroll, so you could like clean. It was so good. It was like a Candyland, a Toyland, there's a better word than what I'm thinking of, but it was so fun to go there. The lazy tutorials remind me of Bill Wirtz. You know, in the very first lazy tutorial with the whole, this is a plane, I have such a Bill Wirtz affectation going on that I was actually like a little bit embarrassed. I didn't do it on purpose, but yeah, I think I was indirectly channeling some mad Bill Wirtz energy. I love Bill, and I love his music is like weirdly bizarre and self-aware and catchy. Do you do any yoga or meditation? I do mad push-ups sometimes. No, I should probably try to figure out something to help my brain. The biggest thing that I honestly have found over the past year is that given an outside lack of stimuli, I still set up some pretty apeshit patterns. I just still kind of keep winding myself tight. In fact, right now I'm in a very weird space where I finally. So for the past 4 months, I thought I was going to finish the first episode back in December, and so I was telling the sound team like, "Hey, I'm basically ready with this episode. Just hold on for a second." And I put myself into this crunch time to finish the episode, which just kept going and going and going. And now that I've sent it off to them, I actually have all these other little projects that I wanted to jump straight into, and I've been having the hardest time doing that. And I think that's because it's my brain actually being like, dude, you haven't stopped. You've just been like trying to wring yourself out. And so like my it's just telling me, do you ever get that? I very rarely get that, but I get it usually when I get the flu. Suddenly there's this ambition switch or a productivity switch that's just flipped off, and suddenly I'm like, yeah, I could just sit and watch TV for like 12 hours. I don't care. Whereas normally I watch one episode of Buffy and I'm like, cool, all right, time to get back to work. I also got my vaccine a couple days ago, and so I've been feeling a little bit even more lethargic because of that. I would love to see one about, regarding future Patreon videos, I'd love to see one about what inspires you. I really enjoyed the completing big shots thing. That's cool. Okay. Because I would love it if I felt more comfortable using the Patreon kind of as a sounding board and a place to kind of like organize those sorts of processes and thoughts. I just, when it's a video on for Blender, like, hey, just hit this button and you can do this thing, that the value of that to me is very like evident. I'm like, oh, people would want to know that. Whereas I don't take that as much of a given if it's like, and here's me thinking about how frustrating it is to write something. But people have responded really well to those, and so I have a few of those videos that I've actually made that I never posted because just I didn't know. So I'll try to feel more comfortable, kind of like exploring the more creative process in the Patreon videos. Thank you very much for that. I do like Kubrick. Kubrick is wild. I want to go through and rewatch some of his stuff. I finally forced. We do movie nights here sometimes, and I always kind of very selfishly I pick films that I don't think anybody's really going to like, but that I think that we should see so we can understand like Simpsons references effectively. And so like we just watched Tarkovsky's Stalker, which is a movie that nobody wished they'd seen by the end. I mean, I enjoyed it, but everybody was like, I keep having dreams of it, and it's like it kind of like gets into your brain. But yeah, I want to go through and do some movie nights that are going through Kubrick. Soccer was gorgeous. Just, it's also maybe not one to bring to a movie night. Do you think you will transfer to DaVinci Resolve since it has no... I want to. I do want to. Yeah, if I could figure out how to not go with Adobe and they're $60 a month. But at this point, I'm using Adobe Premiere for editing, and I'm using After Effects for compositing, and all of my projects are still all interspersed in there. And because I'm working on projects over the course of like years and years, if I want to go back and tweak something, I have to have access to that file, which means I probably, even if I tried to stop using After Effects, I'd still have to want to open up those old files for a while. And so they've kind of got me in that regard. Which is a bummer, but yeah, I would love to, especially with how open like using the Blender video sequence editor even, or I don't know. It's always fun to do things that I normally do in the Adobe stuff completely in Blender, or like Resolve, just to prove that it's possible. But I feel like they've got me pretty good still. What's the cringiest 3D effect I can recall from Hollywood high budget movie? I don't know, actually. I feel like back in the early thousands, folks were getting really, really ambitious with CG. Like, there was a period in the 90s, which I absolutely loved, which is where they would design everything. They're like, we're going to have as much interactive, practical stuff on set as possible, and so all we have to do is fill in the little CG bit, in the computer, and everything else is all, we did on set. And at some point, the headspace shifted towards, all right, we're just going to do it all in the computers. We just pan to blank thing. And I feel like we lost a bit there. And I think that's kind of where people started getting really overzealous, is when they started seeing like the computer as like a later process as opposed to being combined with all the practical stuff. That's not a very hot take, I know. I have not lived in or visited Asia at all, but I very much would like to. Once it's safe to travel, I would love to get out a little bit more. Went over to Amsterdam, basically, worked with the Blender Institute, and that's mostly it for international travel. Yeah, I was thinking Cromfell. That's how I always say your name in my head. I was thinking DaVinci Resolve might not be a good replacement for After Effects. I've had a lot of people talk about Nuke as a good node-based replacement, and I'd be interested in getting into that. I want to see a video where Caitlin talks. Let's see. There's a. She'd probably hate that. Whenever I'm like, all right, now you have to prove yourself. Like, I like to kind of do the yes and kind of improv type thing. Like, it's kind of tongue in cheek. But if there's a situation where she has to feel as if she has to prove herself and like she's put on the spot and it's like, now say something, witty or whatever, she's just like, I can't do that. What are you? This is the worst. But we'll see. I do want to try slipping her more secretly into videos. Just like we just explored a battleship across the harbor that might be used as a filming location, and so I'll try to put that video up. We got little Caitlin in that one. Caitlin is currently actually at work. Otherwise, yes, that sounds. I would love to have her swing by. The weirdest part with this entire dynamic is like the Patreon and all of that is there's nobody in this room right now. I've done all of this talking there's nobody for like 1,000 feet around me. I am in a void and I'm having to talk as if I'm talking to like a human being. And so who does my lizard brain think I'm talking to right now? It's created this kind of like just prototypical audience member who is all of you who I'm currently talking to, and that's a little bit wild. And it's also the reason that if I hadn't had enough glucose or whatever, my videos are horrible, because I can't generate other nested mental entity to talk to. And so the idea of doing a video where there's actually other people, where I can get like feedback, is very cool. I envy your solitude. Yeah, it is very nice, actually. Like, it's a little bit weird sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I have no friends, and I live alone in the woods. But also, especially when it's sunny out, oh, just being able to, like, all right, hit a render and just, like, walk around in the sunshine and eat some berries is pretty good. Would an interview-style stream be on the cards? I've done, actually, a couple interviews recently. Unfortunately, they all had really... So every time I talk to anybody over the course of the quarantine, the first, like, 45 minutes to an hour is just that quarantine energy, where it's like, man, this year, you know, this is kind of like manic desperation to it, of just like, I just need to establish that there's common ground, that I have humanity or something. And I feel like it makes, I don't know, I feel like I've been really cringy in most of my podcasts and like talks I've done with people, but yeah, in theory, I think that'd be great. Especially because, again, I don't have a lot of people to talk to about like the CG filmmaking side of things. All of my friends in real life don't really do anything like that, and so I'm kind of like, hey, look, they just released a new tracker update, and Caitlin's like, wow, that's amazing. So I'd love to talk about that with people. I think it's like people were doing claymation back in the time. You need to enjoy solitude. Yes, man. Okay, so when I was a kid, and I thought of my biggest dreams, I thought, okay, I just want like a big warehouse in the woods where people could come hang out, and we'd make like stop motions and music and movies and stuff. And then when I was in high school, that was still my plan. And now I actually have that. I'm like, I have this space. I need to set up the stop motion room. And instead I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I try to give myself a reality check every once in a while. I was like, no, you're not just alone in the woods. You have all the resources you ever dreamed of, Ian. Just actually make the stuff happen. And yeah, I want to... Stop motion in solitude is the absolute best thing. Yes, compositing different sections of scenes while maintaining overall consistency. Do you mean across different shots, or you just mean in one scene? Because I've talked about it. I do want to do a video about that very soon. A lot of it has to do with composition, and like a lot of times when people are asking about lighting or rendering, what they're really talking about is composition, and that's the thing I've always honestly skirted in the videos, because I don't know how to teach that. I don't even know if you can teach that. There are a couple tricks that I use, like just zooming way out, or like relaxing my eyes, and just like, can you still kind of get an idea of the essence of the image, or like, does the composition still feel fairly balanced and readable, even if it's blurry? But yeah, doing every step with the composition in mind, in terms of lighting, is really important. And like when you're shooting the live thing, having a very clear light source that you can also emulate in the CG can kind of help. I don't know, I know this isn't particularly answering your question, but that's a really big help for getting it all to integrate. Having a clear light source that the brain can immediately identify, of like if you're in a dark space and you have a light, and then the light basically is also reading as a proximity map or whatever, for like letting people have an immediate layout of the space. Like, oh, the brighter the thing is, the closer it is to the light source, I can see how it's all laid out. Whereas if you have a bunch of different lights going at different intensities and stuff in a cluttered space, it's a lot harder for the brain to immediately get a sense of composition. In fact, I think if this is just jumping all over the place, but in terms of seeing a lot of people first starting out doing renders, like doing city streets or whatever, they have a lot of very disparate light sources, which is honestly fairly realistic, because that's how real life is. But if you're trying to make an image that catches people's attention, having a key intense light source is really useful. something that makes people's brains go zhunk and look at the image. And so coming up with a big video billboard or something. Just a random thought. How did you like your time in the Netherlands when you worked on Tears of Steel? Did you take any photos to create assets? Yes. So on Tears of Steel, because we were releasing it completely public domain, we had to take every texture completely ourselves. So we went on a lot of photo trips around Amsterdam, just taking pictures. That was, like, honestly, that was the best year of my life. Especially because, like, Ton was taking care of the lodgings and the pay and everything. Like, we just had to show up and make stuff. And working with, like, all of those talented, just absolutely lovely people. I'm still friends with, like, all those guys. That was such a good year. If you ever get a chance to work on a Blender Foundation project, you should do it. And also, just the way they've been expanding. I've only seen the new setup that they have. I was at the old place back in 2012, where it's kind of like a small room. But now they've got that full building, and I love that they're going for it. Cats Don't Understand Anything is a great song. Do you remember recording that? I do remember recording that. And then at the end, I booped the cat, and the cat attacks my face, which makes sense because I was weirding him out. I've never played around with Substance Designer. No. I should. I feel like there's probably a limit to how far the image texture process can get me. And I've been enjoying learning how to combine that with the procedural workflow, but I think, like, learning Substance Designer is probably the final piece of that puzzle. Here, just a second. I feel my voice start to go. I haven't been talking a lot lately. How do you pick your real-life locations that you use for digitally extending? Whatever I can get. That's actually... Actually, so that's kind of where I'm at right now with trying to plan the second episode, because the first one, we built everything from scratch. It took years. And for this next one, I don't want it to take years. And the biggest thing for that is not building everything from scratch. And so that means I'm very, very, very much focused on trying to find practical locations that I could augment. And we found some. I was telling you about the battleship, so I'm going to be doing a bunch of photo scans and stuff for that. So we film in a little bit of it, but then in the wide shots, I can digitally extend it into being whatever I want. But I don't have to do that for every shot. And yeah, basically just what, especially because I don't need a big space. I can just use a tiny little corner. Here, let's see. Out here, there's my little cyberpunk set, what remains of it. And what I like is, like, all I shot in was right here. All this other stuff I can replace, and as long as the people just stay right there, I don't have to roto or green screen or anything. What's your favorite paid asset website? I think I just Turbo Squid, CG Trader, Blender Market is usually my go-tos. Is your internet bad out there? Oh, I don't think so. How's the stream quality? I think it's usually pretty good. Can Blender use virtual production like Unreal Engine, streaming green screen footage real-time into the 3D scene? No. At this point, no, it can't. In fact, I'm not entirely sure how good Unreal is at that. They have, I guess it can do it, yeah. I've just heard various things from people who've tried it practically. There are, like, Sebastian Koenig, and, I forget the people he's working with, posted some videos where they were doing that using, like, a black magic card. So they were using a tracked camera to create the motion for the background, but then they were doing the live keying in a different program. I think even just streaming in a screen capture of the Blender viewport for the background behind him, so they were doing it live, which means it's still very, very hackish. I think right now Unreal is going to have an edge in that department for a very long time. They've been dumping massive amounts of money and effort into really being the solution for that. Would you ever be interested in doing some kind of stream where you look at renders that your patrons have made and do some sort of critique or review? yeah, if that's a thing people people would like. Usually I've always been actually impressed by people who can do that sort of thing, who can like critique other people's stuff, because my thing is always like, there's stuff maybe I would do different, but I'm assuming this is what they wanted to do, and so who am I to like come in and be like, why'd you do it like that? It's like, because they wanted to. But if that's a thing people would like, yeah. How did you find the church? It was, I opened up Redfin, the real estate website, and it was just the first thing that popped up. And I spent the next 6 months trying to convince myself there were lots of other places like it, but I never found one. And so I just obsessively trying to get this place was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Okay, so it looks like these are a lot of people responding positively to the render review idea. So okay, maybe that could be part of. I want to do these streams like weekly, until people aren't interested or whatever. And so yeah, maybe we could just make that part of. I think I would still kind of want to start slow, still kind of finding my footing, but I also want to find out why the stream wasn't initially working today, because that's weird. It's. I'll figure out. I'll set up another YouTube account. The hard thing about troubleshooting the streaming is that the go live button is plastered everywhere. And it took me a long time to find out, like in Streamlabs, you click go live now. You're not actually going live now. That leads you to the final menu where you get to like connect with YouTube and everything. But yeah, I'll figure out why stuff didn't start right away today. Do you have everything planned out, or are you going episode by episode? Yes! Favorite Beatles song. Have to know. You Never Give Me Your Money. For I don't know. Or Strawberry Fields, or I Love Beatles. Do you have everything planned out, or are you just going episode by episode? Both very much. Just the fact that I'm working with a lot of constraints means I have to be really flexible, but I have all of the big, long-term pieces in place. And actually what's frustrating is I like kind of slow burns with payoffs, but because everything I make goes so slow, I've never reached any of those payoffs. Anything I've ever uploaded has just been like the initial setup. And so I'm really trying to figure out, like, especially now, I'm realizing all of my instincts for like the second episode, I kept making it super granular, like, and then we'll watch him go to bed, and then we'll watch him eat, and we'll watch all of this stuff, and I'm kind of going like, no, let's jump ahead a little bit, catch up on some of the boring things, and try to make it a little bit more action oriented. I think that'll be a good idea. I'm in the middle of writing. I actually just threw out my writing for the past month and a half because I showed it to Caitlin, and she's like, that's a lot of information. And I was like, okay. Writing is hard, and I'm not intrinsically good at it, and so I kind of just like, I do it by trial and error, and I'm trying to like learn little lessons. The biggest one that I learned, or that I wasn't putting into place, is when it comes to, what's it called? Exposition, like information you're giving to the audience. Ideally, you want to be answering questions that the audience is already asking, and in this case, I was just dumping information on to set up a context for later, which would have paid off, but it meant that like in the meantime, it wasn't all that engaging, and so I'm doing another pass with that in mind. Your thoughts on Genomon? I've never used it. Prospect isn't on Netflix UK. I wonder where it's at now. I don't know. I haven't Googled that in a minute. I'm curious if you ever felt that more physical VFX, like sparks and dust cannons, would be beneficial. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's elements of randomness that you get for free from real life, like dust and sparks and all of that. That especially if you can use photographic elements, is gonna make everything work so much better. There's obviously pros and cons to the ways you integrate it with the CG, and especially with like 3D. I don't understand how anybody can work with 3D, because that throws off basically every trick that I know of. Like, especially if you're just laying in steam elements or whatever. As soon as you get that binocular, parallax going, you can see it's just a 2D image. But yeah, I think shooting stock video is always gonna help you in the long run. I look like an exact replica of Hamlet from the 1996 Hamlet movie. Please Google it. I've been dying to tell you. 1996 Hamlet. Okay. Let's find out. Oh, I see him! I see him! Wait, no, that's what's his name? It's just the mustache. It's just the mustache thing. I'm glad I finally grew this. Macklemore actually told me to grow this. I was on a gig for a month, and he was like, hey, you need a mustache. And I was like, well, I'm just sitting in this room doing CG for months, so yeah, I won't shave. And I was like, alright, I actually have a little bit of a... It adds some contrast to my face. Because I don't have eyebrows. I don't know what's up with that. I find it really cool that you have a window into another room in your house. I do too, actually. You can get Prospect on Amazon and YouTube. Oh, thanks, Gabriel. Yeah, so the weird thing, apparently with the with Prospect, just a little glimpse into that whole process. They screened it at Sunday. They screened it at a bunch of different festivals, and apparently, like 4 years ago, everybody would just bought it up, like immediately. Like Sony would have bought it up and distributed it or whatever. But now all of the focus is on, I don't know, just that whole climate is changing so quick, and so now the release process is incredibly convoluted. Like you give it to Amazon for like 2 months to stream, then you give it to Netflix for a couple months to stream, then you give it to the DVD manufacturers to sell, then you give it to like the Blu-ray, and it's all of these separate deals, and it's incredibly convoluted. And they the directors were like, yeah, basically just I'm hands off at this point, and I don't think I'm saying anything secret. I guess this is other people's information that maybe I'm not supposed to be sharing. But yeah, that means where Prospect pops up is I guess just changes over time. Let's see. How do I get started with freelance visual effects? How do I go about finding clients? Yeah, usually like. Most people, I think, just start with their friends who are doing a music video, and your friend will have no money, and they won't have an idea of how hard things are, so they'll ask for a ton, and the only way you can give it to them is if you supplement that lack of money or resources with your own time, and you just burn out for a couple months trying to make a good music video. This is not good advice. This is just how I think it usually always pans out. But if you do that, at the end you have a thing that you've worked really hard on. My experience is that if you dump passion into something, it's never wasted. Like it's like a potential. It's like you're storing it, and so if you work really hard on a project, even if you don't make a lot of money off of it or whatever, like you still have that as a resource, or even if you've learned skills or whatever. But yeah, so so I'm not articulating this particularly well, but any good thing that's happened for me in my life work-wise is because somebody saw something that I made as a passion project. And so I guess that would be just really focus on the stuff you really want to work on, and when you have the time, and ideally just other gigs, if you put it out there, other gigs will kind of come out of that. I really have bad advice, I guess, in that regard, because I just did it the very slow way. I started when I was 17 working for like random people where my dad told like his friend, hey, Ian does video, and so I'm like filming them doing construction projects and stuff and editing it and being like, here you go. And it was just very, very slow, learning a lot of lessons over and over and over, because I'm not great at that. Favorite Radiohead song? Oh no! How am I supposed to answer favorite Radiohead song? I'm just glad that Radiohead is always there, existing for when I need them. No matter where you go or what you do, somewhere out there, Radiohead still exists, and I think that's pretty fantastic. If someone could pay me for pontificating, that would be great. Yes, I agree. Sometimes I have the feeling when scrolling through Instagram that some just dryly imitate lazy tutorials without much initiative. How do you see it? I think there was a degree to which people were emulating the lazy tutorials. He says with a bit too much reserve. Um, but yeah, also, actually, so I stopped doing the lazy tutorials just because I felt as if like that kind of we got to cram it into a minute energy was becoming a little bit too prevalent. And I like, not to sound over, I was not aware of any of those fields before I got into that. I wasn't really aware of tutorials or people doing that stuff on YouTube, and so I didn't mean to step on toes. There were already like Blender Secrets doing the 1 minute Quicko tutorials already. And I feel like I've gotten an inordinate amount of credit for that type of format. But mostly I've just been excited that the idea that you take something that you know really well and you try to make it into the most digestible version of itself to efficiently feed it to somebody else. I love that mindset. I love that idea for information, to just kind of like be able to watch a bunch of stuff and feel as if you've leveled up a little bit. I love that as a format for learning, but it's when trying to make it too concise gets in the way of actually giving the information. That's where I kind of like got off the boat, and that's kind of why I phased out of doing those too. Is I kept coming up with things that I wanted to maybe make a tutorial about, but like cramming them down into a minute. I was like, that's just doing a disservice to everybody. But yeah, if those things, I mean, Instagram was also perfect for 1 minute tutorials, and so it's not surprising there's a ton of those out there. Green plastic what? Okay, so the VR thing I made with the guy singing fake plastic trees. That was supposed to be. I love Radiohead. I love people who make music, but the person who at 3 a.m. at a party starts playing Radiohead is not always the best thing. Don't be the person who plays Radiohead at 3 a.m. No, that's not true. But that was supposed to be kind of a joke for like the person who plays like Creep, all the time when everybody's stoned, and everybody's like, just no, I'm just trying to chill here, and they're like, oh, I'm a creep. But people kept being like, oh, this is, wow, thanks for sharing this music. I'm like, this was supposed to be ironic. It's always supposed to be ironic. Can you show some stuff you're working on in Blender right now, or just put together a cool scene in Eevee? Would love to see that. Yeah, well, we can. Maybe I won't do that today, but for future ones, I think if I can back off from the, I've been enjoying answering all these questions, but I feel like my voice only has a limit of about an hour and a half, and so maybe if we started off with a little bit of the render critiques, maybe, and then we answer questions, and then we end it with just kind of messing around, making a scene in Blender. That could be a really cool format for future videos. And also, just to reiterate, like, this one is just patron only because I really do want to play catch up on like thanking you guys, and I felt bad that I haven't been able to keep up with all of your messages. This is a delightful microcosm of that. What's your favorite mushroom? Are you the same person, or is just multiple people asking my favorite mushroom? I guess no. One person asked my favorite mushroom to forage, which I said I would love to find a morel just because I haven't yet. My favorite mushroom would probably be one of those wild ass ones that you see in those like Tumblr galleries, man. How important do you think drawing is for 3D artists? Yes. I've long felt that if you have a big experience, a lot of experience with drawing, learning Blender is just the process of making the tool do what you already want. Actually, I feel like most mediums are like that. If you can visualize the thing in your head, if you already have the style figured out and all of that, all you're trying to do is get the tool to do what's in your head. It's and that's the hard part. And so I've seen so many artists step into Blender like nearly effortlessly because it's not about trying to learn how to do all of the art. They literally just have to learn the mechanical bit of like, okay, I can pull the vertices like this, I can texture them. Okay, I made this thing. And so if you, if you can draw, you're gonna learn. You're gonna have an easier time learning Blender. Absolutely. By the way, it's awesome seeing how nice people are acting here with no spamming and stuff. Yes, thank you for that. You guys are very, very, very nice. it's been so. It's one of the reasons too I felt so bad about not being able to respond to the messages, because they're all so kind, and they're people like trying to help me out with questions I've had, or like share really cool things that they're working on, and it's all stuff that like morally and just like and desire. I'm like, I want to interact with you. I want to talk about that. I just haven't been able to, and it's burning me out. How do you avoid burnout? I don't. How do you relieve stress from projects? Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was talking about. I'm having a little identity crisis now, because I'm like, for the past week, that motivation has just kind of shut off, and it's like, just take it easy. We're also having, again, the first sunny days. I've got the vaccine, and I just finished a 3-year project, and so, but I'm not used to that. I'm used to just the inspiration comes and the projects come, and I just can like harness that energy and do what I want with it. And so the fact that it's gone for a second, I'm like, what's happening? But I think that's creativity, like everything else, is a cycle. There's input and output, and I've kind of been just like outputting for a very long time, and so I think I just need to kind of like take a moment and re-inhale with new inspirations, and kind of like letting myself get back in touch with my life just a little bit. Making really big scenes seems really hard in Blender. Is the solution really to just kind of miniature sets? I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm sorry. Yes. Translating in Blender with a 2D. I love like what's Dedouze? Dedouze. He's one of my favorite like Blender artists. Absolutely. Where did his he did the Blender 2.79 splash screen. He does all the stuff in the grease pencil. Oh no. Oh, we had a bunch of sunshine yesterday, and so Seattle jumped from being like 50 degrees so far this year to, over the course of like a week and a half, blasting up to like 80. And so I was out in the sun with sunscreen on my face, and I just rubbed it into my eye, and now it burns. What do I think of Corridor Digital? I love those guys. Those guys are doing a bunch of fun stuff. And they very much, especially over this last year of sitting alone in the woods, and then seeing them like, we just made Keanu Reeves out of buckets. I'm like, that's so cool. I would love to talk to those guys a bit more. Do some bonsai to recharge your mind. That's a good tip. Let's see. A cyberpunk mosque. That would actually be very cool. Any plans to fit the church with an LED screen stage? If they get cheap enough, that would be really, really cool. So I got a laser projector specifically for that thought. Like, all right, maybe we could do kind of like a poor man's virtual production type thing, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how to get it to work. My initial thought was it'd work better with dark scenes, and so I was trying to do like night stuff, but then it all comes down to the black level. Basically, the ambient light in the room, even just like the laser projection bouncing off the ceiling and floor back onto the screen, means the black level doesn't get all that dark. And so it actually worked better if it was a low contrast kind of like medium brightness scene, because then the black level doesn't matter as much. But then to compensate for that, you have to create the ambient light for the subject, which creates more spill. And so yeah, I felt like a projector maybe wasn't the best way to go about it, unless if there was very distinct isolation. Like I wanted to set up a little car set, and so you could light the inside of the car and still have the background, and the windshields and all that could kind of help justify the black level thing. But yeah, those panels, I was talking about it like I don't know, 9 months ago, and people sent me all these links for those panels, and you can do it for fairly cheap if you get the pitch distance, if you get the LED distance not all that close. Like the ones they use for the Mandalorian are very specialty. They're very, very close and fairly expensive. But if you're just trying to do like a big video billboard across the back, or create a cube or something like that, that is not as prohibitively expensive as I thought. And so I'm excited about that. What I am bummed about is that for the past, I don't know, like 15 years or whatever, like consumers, we have computers that can render CG, we have green screens, we can do all of that stuff, and so we've just been able to do what Hollywood does, but just at like a different scale, basically. But now they've kind of come in with their big boy toys of, all right, well now we have like $1 million magic room, and we're all like, oh well, we can't. I guess we can't really do that, can we? And so I'm excited to get to the point where, as consumers, we figure out how to do that somehow. It seems hard though. That said, I do definitely have the space for it, and I've been kind of future-proofed in that regard. And I would love to figure out something for that, but that's probably a ways out there. Has workflow changed after geometry nodes? I need to really dig into geometry nodes. I think it's very much there. I love being able to come up with tools that help do stuff, especially if you're trying to expand your workflow. If you're trying to do more with the same amount of effort, creating procedural tools is a great way to do that. Of course, the danger is that you can spend way longer on creating the procedural tool than it would have taken to just do it, brute forcing it to begin with. But yeah, I want to make a dock, like where you make a walkway and it just creates all the posts that go down into the water with like the barnacles and all that. I feel like that would be a very good project. I'm kind of holding off on. Cities are also, roads, building, air conditioner type stuff would be a fun project. But I haven't really gotten into the geometry nodes just yet. Basically the reason I want to learn them is just so I don't get left behind and intimidated. I want to just kind of like try to keep up with the technology because it's obviously like advancing so fast. Blend Effects GBR using virtual production, even streaming. Blend VFX GBR, is that what I've been looking at? Is that the thing that Sebastian Koenig was talking about? Because that was the thing where I think they were screen capturing the Blender viewport and using a black magic box to do the live keying, like outside of Blender. But I could be wrong about that. Have you gone to film school? I have not, no. Instead, I was kind of at a point where I'm like, should I do film school? Or should I just try to kind of make a film? So I just jumped into freelance, and I spent like 7 years making a film called Project London, which taught me a whole bunch. That was a very wild project. You were talking about everything in the scene being placed deliberately. Is this true for your office? No. Oh, geez. I did, however, put all of my garbage from the couch on the floor, and so that has been done for you, because this is a real stream. Barnacles. Oh yeah. Thoughts on the new splash screen? Oh, it's so good. Yeah. What Arendelle is been so good at showing off all of the powers of the geometry nodes and sharing all that information with everybody. Very, very, very inspiring. And that render is just such a good showcase of it, for sure. Do you like to be in the trenches of creating CGI for films, or would you like to get into it at more of a higher level? I guess that kind of contrasts my two interests. There's the idea of storytelling and wishing that instead of doing everything myself, where like I am the bottleneck, suddenly it's being a higher level, like means that ideally stuff can go a little bit faster. But the other side of that is that you lose elements of control sometimes, and also for me there's always an emotional energy aspect of it, especially because most of the films I've done are really low budget. It means I haven't actually worked with like just other people a lot, because just working with random internet people. I did it on Project London. We brought on a bunch of different visual effects artists, and if I'm honest, usually by the time I got their assets and cleaned it up and like made it usable for use in the production, because everybody has a different workflow, or like gave them notes and packaged all of that and everything, I usually was like, I could have just done this faster myself. Not always, but that was like, we worked with a lot of different people, and there were obviously some people that I worked with where it's like they blew my mind, absolutely. But it was when I'm working, it's hard. I realize I don't like being in a manager type role at all. And And so, yeah, I don't know. Geometry nodes can control shape keys. Oh, that's right. Paul Spooner is here in the chat. Paul Spooner was one of the people who blew my mind in Project London. He was a powerhouse, and he actually had. It took me a while to reverse engineer some of his projects, just because he was doing advanced stuff of making like stuff that would actually work really well with geometry nodes, of tiny little nested greebles that would be on these larger modules that would then be on like these larger flying ships. Workflows I'd never even thought about. So I've been working with Paul for 12 years? I don't even know, man. Geometry nodes controlling shape keys. That's very exciting. Do you think there's any way for all of us to share storefronts and textures from around the world? I think that would be... Why am I pointing with my pinky? I think that would be so cool to figure that out. Also, like... So I told you I just got an iPhone because it's the virtual production phone, you know, these days. And it does have, like, you type in photo scanning, and this app comes up for, what's it called? I think it's just called Face App, and it lets you scan your face really quick. And I'm like, it would be cool if we just did have some infrastructure where people could upload their face scans if they didn't mind submitting their face to the public domain, and we just have this library of all these different bits. I think that would be really fun. I don't know exactly how to do that, and I don't know how to keep it, like, how to support it or keep it spam free or anything like that. I feel like that's a database thing where, like, keeping it clean would be pretty important, and keeping it so that folks couldn't just come in and... Not that I'm actually worried about folks coming in and, like, just messing stuff up, but I feel like as soon as you involve enough people's work, that's a thing you should, you know, be careful with. But if anybody has thoughts on that, I'd be curious. That's true. Spaceship Dev has worked a lot. There is the asset channel on the Discord, where there's a lot of that happening, and maybe there's even more. Maybe something's organized, like there's a list out there somewhere, which would be a really cool thing. Any instrument besides a guitar? I have hundreds of pictures to share. Yeah, we should figure out. Because I have a bunch of pictures and stuff too, where it's like we all live in different parts of the world. I have lots of moss and big rocks and stuff, and then, like, Seattle's so boring storefront wise. It all just kind of looks like the same building over and over. I'm like, man, I would love to be able to mix and match it a little bit more. Yeah, I can play a little bit of piano. Actually, I have a video I was working on where I decided to write the music for the first episode of Dynamo myself, which is something I've always been kind of scared to do. But it was a little bit audacious, and I think it may have worked. And so we'll see what people think. I've been walking around Belgrade taking hundreds of photos of buildings and whatever else is in the public for the past few months. Oh, see, yeah, we gotta figure out how to share all those assets, because it's so cool. Some people have sent me folders just personally full of, like, I just walked around Taiwan, here's a grocery store. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. This is actually incredibly useful. I tried my friend's LiDAR on their phone, and the result was pretty stunning. Do you think it has to be easy to make 3D models, or what's your take on all that? I kind of talked a lot about it a little bit in the photo scanning video last week. I haven't found out how to get high-res scans with the iPhone yet. Everything's kind of a little bit blobbish, which works great for, like, wide environmental stuff, but for doing tiny detailed things, haven't really figured out how to do that just yet. And with reality capture being a lot cheaper to process now, I think that's still my go-to. Is just shooting at 4K and unloading it in. But the idea of being able to just, like, run and go, and, like, you're on set and you grab a 3D model of like the environment. So if you need to do a digital pickup shot, you can do that. I've started doing photo scans of, like, the actors and actresses when I do a shoot, just so that if I need to, I could create a digital double and maybe make a wide establishing shot or something like that. But I haven't totally figured out how to do that just on a phone. If you'll be doing critiques and reviews, do you upload things to Discord? I'll figure out, and I will announce that would probably be a Discord-based thing. And I will figure out how to, I'll blast that information out there. how long is the stream going to be? Because I need to sleep. Then you should sleep. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. My voice is, I don't know if you can tell, my voice is kind of going. There's probably lozenges or something I could do in the future. I've been talking for 2 hours straight. I'm very proud of myself. But yeah, I think you should go to bed. And if any of you are hungry, you should get food. Look out for a Google Drive link with all organized assets on Discord. Spaceship Dev is on top of it. I freelance doing commercial real estate photography, and I have a bunch of photos of huge machines and factories I love to share. That is very cool. Yeah, it's funny seeing the same few machines from CG Textures like over and over. It's kind of fun once you become familiar with CG Textures. It's just like being able to see that same DNA in a lot of other projects. I've only seen it a couple times in like big Hollywood movies. Where there's just like a background asset, and I'm like, oh, I know that one. I think usually, like, they're pretty careful about their sources on like the multi-million-dollar projects. What's the Discord link? I didn't know there was one. Yeah, I can drop the link too. If you just Google like how to connect Patreon and Discord, if you're on the Patreon, you automatically have access to the Discord. You just have to link up the Discord from within the Patreon. You can Google machine parts in hardware stores. That's very true. That is very true. A lot of them are often very clean and like set up under studio lighting, and so that can sometimes be a little bit of a limit on it. What I like doing is going on like Redfin or different real estate websites, because they take pictures, like wide-angle pictures of rooms, and you can just map those onto cubes and stick them inside apartment buildings, and you shouldn't, but also who'd catch you if you did. Hardware store photos are probably not CC0. No. Sometimes it's I used to be a lot more guerrilla before I started sharing all of my assets on the Patreon. So now I make them all above board. But yeah, back in the old days, it was a while. You just find a JPEG and you rip it apart and you kind of do all of that. I mean, even everybody does that. I guess. Even on big movies, you find a little texture bit somewhere and you use that as your brush. Just because making everything from scratch all the time is a good way to take forever. Exactly. Who's gonna stop you? If you think you can get away with it. No, this is horrible advice. It's actually not bad advice, but it's not good advice. Maybe shouldn't. I've used pictures from eBay. Yeah, exactly. And the thing about that is, as soon as that thing's sold, that picture's gone. But that whole product is gone, but your picture remains. Capturing signposts and graffiti. See, I've always felt weird about using graffiti because I'm like, that's somebody's. I've never really understood, like, it's usually somebody's name, and so it isn't even like some abstract thing. It's like very specifically like somebody's thing, and so I've been trying to figure out how to easily come up with, self-generated graffiti and things. Haven't figured out a great way to capture that aesthetic yet, because like that's an art. Time to do some Blender now, Ian? Yeah. I think I might just start messing around over in Blender here and kind of getting my voice really really is shot. I haven't really done this before. Okay, let's see. Let's hit the button, and can I? Let's see. I already set this up, but I ripped everything apart trying to figure out why the streaming wasn't starting today. So video capture device. Hey, okay. Add source. Woo! Ah! Woo! Woo! Can you guys see this? Does this look dumb to you? Whoa! Okay. Oops. Okay. And let's check in on Abbey Road. It's nighttime. Let's check in on outer space. Oh! Look at it. This is what it is most of the time. It's just a lot of... Earth is mostly ocean and clouds. I would love for you to open up a Dynamo Dream project file and just go through it. Yeah, we can do that real quick. Here, let's hop back over into Blender. What have I opened recently? Okay. Birds. Side view missile. This one could be fun. I don't know if you're gonna hear the buzzing of my CPU or GPU here. Oh, this is before I relinked all the textures. I moved my major project file from OneDrive over to a Flash and M2 card, which means I often have to relink all my HDRIs and all of that. Let's see. Cool. So yeah, this is the project file, and you can see very much I had the shot planned. Like, this scene works for this angle right here. It's gonna play black really slow at first because I have all these different video files going in here. But then once it's all loaded into RAM, I should get a few more frames per second. Like, yeah, now we're at 3 frames per second. I don't know. So yeah, if we go to the top, it's all designed to kind of be a shoebox diorama that works from like this one exact angle. And in fact, I'm kicking myself a little bit because all these cowboys kind of look very chill. We just filmed ourselves on a green screen one night, and this missile just crashed into the middle of town. Everybody's like, "What's going on?" And so they should probably be a little bit more scared. But the biggest thing I think I keep growing as an artist is mostly just identifying the places where I took probably too sharp of shortcuts when I was younger, and I just kind of like stuck with that. Like ground, I'm still like, oh, you just stick a picture of ground on the ground. In fact, I think this is from, I think this could be Google Earth. There was a period where you could actually license Google Earth images through Google Earth Pro and use those in projects, but I think that was a long time ago, and I don't know if you can still do that anymore. But this is one of those textures I snagged back in the day. But yeah, you can see it's just a warbly JPEG, and if I'd actually use some sort of like photo scan solution or something with displacements, it would probably have worked a lot better. Let's see, let's jump to, oh, this is Eevee rendered mode. So this is, yeah, what my scenes usually look like, and I can jump over into cycles, and it looks more or less the same. This is before I do all of like the diffusion and stuff in the compositing pass, but yeah, Eevee and cycles looks more or less interchangeable, which is really, really cool. This one I didn't even bake the lighting or anything. What's the noise when changing view? Do you mean the audio noise? Because that could just be, I gotta figure out how to make it so my microphone doesn't pick up on my processor processing. That's just an annoying thing. Normally I process it out of my edited videos, but here we're doing this live, and so I don't know how to do that. Coil whine isn't noticeable at all. Oh, thanks. Is it Kai? I see your name all the time. Is that Scott with the hat? No, these are all basically me, my friend Nate, and Caitlin over and over. And these are also, I use, this is the same time we filmed some green screen assets for the Dynamo Dream teaser. So I think some of these outfits are seen watching the big screen of the robot fight in the Dynamo Dream teaser. What's up with catching up with Abbey Road? Just, you know, it's important. But because usually, this is really funny, because it's like, it's the tourists are all like trying to pose all in there, and everybody else is just trying to get to work, and they're just like, and I just think it's great to me. Can you show us the Dynamo trailer scene? Whew. Whoa, we can try. We can definitely try. That's a big scene. I haven't tried opening it for a minute, so it'll probably have a bunch of unlinked stuff. But let's see here. Where even was it? It was Subway. These are not in alphabetical order. Subway Omega Shot. There it is. And I think it's yes. Let's see if it opens. Oh, look at this. This truck right here, because I was trying to keep it as lightweight as possible, I think this truck actually drives through. Yeah, and then it teleports, and it's the same truck that you see down here. And I actually shifted the hue of the color in under the shader editor. Oh, I animated the mix factor of an overlay, so it's a different color truck as it drives into the distance. Did that even save? I don't even think that makes anything lighter weight. But here, let's see if we can go into rendered mode here and see if it gets all pink. Oh, not pink yet. Laser butt. Yes, the file structure. How do I ever find things? It always makes sense in the moment. And it's actually really hard because usually my file structure is based off of scenes for the episode. And so I will have, there's a subway scene. And this is a thing that happens during the subway scene. And so I can find it for that. And if it's a big shot, I'm like, oh, this is the big Omega shot during the subway scene. And so that's fairly easy to remember. Where it gets hard is when a scene I designed for, or shot I designed for one scene gets moved into another scene, because I have to remember where that scene originally came from, or especially when I used to divide things up even more granularly by anticipated episode, and that was no good, because each scene never ended up in the episode that I thought it was going to be. So I'd have to open up each episode and see if that folder was there, or when different episodes had recurring locations, and so I had like cabin scene in episode 6 and episode 7 and episode 8, and so I'd have to open up all of those to try to find which cabin scene's the one I'm looking for. And so it's not perfect. On a small scale, it works fairly well, and whenever I'm actively working on the scene, it's great because I just remember where it is. But if I'm having to go back and find stuff, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. I've seen multiple clips of yours where you render the foreground on an alpha transparent and then do the background later. Yeah. It's, a lot of times it's just really easy to render with a transparent background, and just it lets me dial in the sky. The sky is so powerful composition-wise that it's nice to be able to just tweak that in the final pass. And there's also, or maybe drop in footage of an actual sky so it's moving a little bit. It's just it's nice flexibility. I also like being able to have a depth pass. I usually render each of my scenes with a nice rendered view and a depth pass, so I can put in haze and diffusion and kind of mix that all in and just kind of blend that with the sky a little bit. And it's mostly just an old habit. I can't get this speed on my rig. Do you have a Threadripper? I have a first gen Threadripper, which is I think 4 or 5 years old at this point, but it still works pretty good. But I am running with a 3090, which at some point I want to talk about. I don't say that much because the 3090, that's a pretty hot thing, and the idea that the stuff I'm doing can only be done if you have a really hot GPU. To a degree, that is there's a degree to which having a very fast, powerful GPU does actually affect how I work. And I can work in rendered view, and it gets rid of that stage of all right, now I'm in the modeling texturing mode, now I'm switching to the rendered mode and seeing how everything comes across. That used to be different stages, and now those kind of are blended together. It's the future. It's really fun. I'm excited for everybody else to get there too. But at the same time, it's I'm rarely doing anything that couldn't be done on an old GTX 1080, which I came from. It's got a lot bigger video RAM, which means I can dump a lot more footage in there, little people on off-the-channel cards and stuff, and that's no problem. But I wasn't even running into the limits on that before because I always compressed them really small. But yeah, man, 3090, it's everything that they say it is. And especially with Blender and optics denoising and all of that, it is powerful. It's very cool. My GPU is hot all the time. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this scene has loaded up here. So let's just dig through. Here's Caitlin, and the biggest thing I found is that a lot of programs don't have a consensus between straight alpha and pre-multiplied alpha, or at least some programs are weird about it, and I forget if it's Blender or if it's After Effects or whatever, but I exported my video element of Caitlin here. Look, she looks so blurry. I do my work with her low res, and then I swap in the high res file before I do the final render, and I think this is the low res file because she looks very pixely. But I accidentally exported it in the wrong... I think I exported it pre-multiplied, which gave her a black fringe when I imported it into Blender, which meant I had to design this entire shot so that she never went like in front of bright things. And if you watch the scene, you can actually see that. And the few times she does, you can see this dark fringe around her face, which I could have just fixed with a checkbox, but I literally designed the entire scene to avoid that. Let's see, where's the camera? Oh, here's the camera view. But this isn't the camera view. I must be in a different camera mode. But yeah, this is the scene here. You can see. Let's see. Here we are in this starting room. Oh, there's Caitlin as she leaves. This was just a friend, whose name I should remember. Justina, who was over one day, and I was like, "Hey, can we film you as a 3D element?" And let's see, what frame rate do I get if I hit play here? If I turn off the Steam elements, I actually get a pretty decent frame rate. Missed bits, yes, I think. Yeah, look at that, 6 frames per second. But this is because I've got these guys going, and I have all of these videos going, and I have, down here I have all these video textures on these different screens, and all these people going, and all of this is playing when I hit play. And so, it's pretty impressive, and as long as you keep it small. That said, video textures are the thing that'll slow down your entire scene. And so I usually keep them all in separate layers so I can turn them all off if I want. Oh geez, my voice is going so bad, you guys. How would you fix that black fringe directly in Blender? I'm having trouble. So if you're exporting from Blender, you should just be able to pick the right settings as you export. This was just a mismatch between After Effects and Blender, which I ran into. If you're in Blender exporting, you want to just pick, you want to throw in an alpha convert node before your final output node in the compositor. And you want to, I think, just set to pre-multiply, although I need to double check because it's sometimes backwards. I find it funny how you're dragging and dropping people. Yes! Me, I like it. So what I want to do is actually film a bunch of people and just have them in one video. Like have, you know, maybe 3 rows of like 12 people or something. And so it's a big video, but you get like 20 people for the weight of only just one large video file. I think that could be a really good way of making crowds for like background stuff. Hey Lucas, yeah, we're still going. Although my voice is, I'm probably gonna look for an excuse to kind of fade out in a second here. I can hear my own GPU pleading for its life. And this is where I always cut maybe a few too many corners when I'm trying to model low poly. But the payoff for that is that you can make these final really complex scenes because you haven't wasted any polygons. And I do like that. And the fact that I'm using as much instancing as possible. So I say it all the time, but like all this has to do, all the computer has to do is remember this one table. And then I can have as many instances as I want of that table, and the computer's like, yeah, no, I mean, that's the same table, though. Those don't count. And so, yeah, anytime you can work instancing into your workflow, that's going to help you make really big, complex scenes. And it means you get to just focus on where you want to actually put the polygons. Also, let's explore. This is a special pipe that I thought people would more focus on. I tried to make it striped and everything. We've got the reuse septic for when you got a number 2 again. And if you follow it, it's going through the entire scene that has been seen millions and millions of times. And as far as I know, I've posted about it, but nobody has ever said anything. It goes here, and then it, in the distinctive pipe, it goes straight into the vending machine. It's a poo pipe, and they turn it into soda. That's just a little poo joke that's been in that shot the whole time. This is Paul Spooner's. Paul Spooner actually made this map. He made, I think he actually did some Python programming or something to randomize. I made this small, but it took actual world names, but like would offset letters and change vowels and stuff. So it was kind of like this forgotten past of Earth. And he made this entire complex metro system that I've had a really fun time sticking in scenes just because it's such great world building. Okay, I think I actually have to end this because my voice is actually disappearing at this point. But you guys, thank you so much for waiting around at the start as I was trying to figure all this out. I'll do some tests on maybe an account that doesn't have as many subscribers, so I'm not worried about spontaneously just starting an unexpected stream. Have you tried rendering this in cycles? I have. It actually doesn't look all that different. Is Don't Panic a Hitchhiker's reference? Can't always. Oh, sweet. Excellent. My voice is dead, but I don't have to talk. Nobody needs me to talk for the next day. So I'm just going to sip on some tea and, yeah. Cool. I will, yeah, and I will be... My voice sounds okay. That's good. My range is narrowing, and so now I'm just very much in this one narrow band that I have left. Because I don't have it. Never mind, that was a bad demonstration of anything. But, yeah, thanks for hanging out. I actually had a really fun time. I hope it was entertaining to you guys, and we will do this again soon. Let's see if I can figure out how to end